Tonight's bedtime story is called Puss in Boots. Once upon a time, in a quiet little village, there lived a poor miller with 3 sons. When the miller passed away, he left his mill to the oldest son, his donkey to the middle son, and to the youngest son, only a cat. The youngest son sighed deeply. "Oh dear, my brothers can work and earn their living, but all I have is this cat. What good is that?" The cat suddenly spoke.
"Do not worry, master. If you give me a pair of fine boots and a sack, I will make your fortune, and much more."
The young man nearly fell back in surprise. A talking cat? But his eyes shone with trust. And so he agreed. Soon the cat had tall leather boots and a strong sack. From that day on, he was known as Puss in Boots. Puss in Boots was clever indeed. He filled his sack with carrots and grain, then laid it open in a field. Soon a fat rabbit hopped inside, and the cat quickly pulled the strings. He carried the rabbit proudly to the king's castle.
"Your Majesty, this gift comes from my master, the noble Marquis of Carabas."
For the king, pleased with such a fine gift, smiled warmly. Day after day, Puss in Boots brought more presents: plump partridges, juicy quail, and shiny rabbits. Each time the king heard the same name, the Marquis of Carabas. One morning, Puss in Boots hurried to his master.
"Quickly, go and bathe in the river. Leave the rest to me."
The young man obeyed, though confused. Just then, the king's carriage rolled by, with the princess seated inside.
"Help! My master, the Marquis of Carabas, is drowning!"
The king ordered his guards to save the poor man. They pulled him from the river and dressed him in the finest royal clothes. When the princess saw him, her cheeks turned pink. She smiled shyly, and the young man's heart leapt. Meanwhile, Puss in Boots raced ahead of the carriage. He stopped by the fields where farmers were working.
"Farmers, listen well. If the king asks who owns this land, you must say it belongs to the Marquis of Carabas. If you do not, you will regret it."
The frightened farmers agreed at once. So when the king asked, they all bowed and said, "These fields belong to the Marquis of Carabas." At last, Puss in Boots reached a magnificent castle belonging to a terrible ogre. The cat boldly marched inside.
"Good day, mighty ogre. I hear you have magic so great that you can change into any creature you wish. Perhaps a lion?"
"Of course I can! Watch this!"
The ogre roared and became a huge lion. Puss in Boots leapt back in pretend terror.
"Impressive indeed. But surely you cannot change into something small, like a mouse?"
Ha! That is child's play! Look!
The ogre shrank and turned into a tiny mouse. Quick as lightning, Puss in Boots pounced and swallowed him whole. When the king's carriage arrived, Puss in Boots stood proudly at the castle gates.
"Welcome, your majesty, to the castle of my master, the Marquis of Carabas."
The king was astonished at the beauty of the castle. The princess looked lovingly at the young man, and before long the two were married. As for Puss in Boots, he became a great lord himself and lived a life of comfort and adventure. And though he never chased mice again, he always kept his boots polished, just in case another adventure came along. The end.